Young Sheldon is full of moments that will absolutely destroy you, from a 9-year-old crying beside empty chairs at his own party, to a father whose last words to his family were just, "See y'all later." I'll be going over the saddest moments in Young Sheldon, ranked, starting with one of the most overlooked. Now, I want to start here because these two moments are the kind of thing you watch the first time and think, okay, that was a little sad, I guess. But on a rewatch, knowing where the show ends up, they hit completely different. And neither one works unless you understand both, so bear with me. Number 10. Sheldon and Missy say goodbye at the airport in Season 6. On the surface, this is just a brother and sister separating for the first time because Sheldon's heading to Germany with Mary. And normally, these two can barely stand each other. Their entire dynamic for 6 seasons is insults, competition, and Sheldon treating Missy like she's intellectually beneath him, while Missy treats Sheldon like the world's most annoying roommate. But at the airport, all of that disappears. Neither of them knows how to say what they're actually feeling, and you can tell they're both scared about being apart, which is something they've literally never had to deal with before. The reason this lands on the list is because it's the first time you realize that their constant fighting was actually a form of closeness, and taking that away, even temporarily, makes both of them fall apart a little. But here's what makes it worse. While Sheldon and Mary are on that flight, a tornado tears through Medford, and the people left behind, including Missy, are in real danger. That separation they were nervous about suddenly becomes genuinely terrifying. Number 9 picks up the thread of Missy being in pain and nobody noticing. In Season 4, Missy goes through her first real breakup. And look, a teenage heartbreak on its own probably doesn't crack a saddest moments list. But this one does because of when it happens. The same night Missy's world is falling apart over a boy, George and Mary are having a massive fight downstairs. The whole house is at war with itself, and Missy is upstairs dealing with it completely alone. Nobody checks on her. Nobody asks how she's doing. She eventually climbs out her bedroom window and leaves, and the only person who follows her is Sheldon. The kid with the least emotional intelligence in the family is the one who shows up for her. Now, both of these feel relatively small compared to what's coming, but they're setting up two patterns the show is going to make much more painful. The first is that every time the twins are separated, bad things happen. And the second is that Missy has been invisible in this family for a long time, and nobody seems to notice until she does something extreme. That second pattern connects directly to someone who isn't even a Cooper, and her arc might be the most consistently heartbreaking thing on the entire show. But before we get to her, we need to talk about the adults, because two of them reach their absolute breaking point in ways that directly mirror Sheldon's worst fears about his own future. There's a specific kind of sadness that only hits when you watch an adult who's supposed to have their life figured out completely fall apart. And these next two entries are that. Number 8, Season 6 finale. A tornado is bearing down on Medford, and George grabs Missy and pulls her into a ditch. He physically shields her with his body while the storm passes over them. And in that moment, while they're lying in the dirt with debris flying everywhere, Missy apologizes for everything. For acting out, for the truck she stole, for pulling away from the family. She tells her dad she loves him. The reason this wrecks people isn't the tornado. It's the timing. Missy had been spiraling for most of Season 6. She felt forgotten. She ran away. She was angry at everyone. And right here, in the middle of genuine danger, she drops all of that and reconnects with her father. It's one of the most honest moments between George and any of his kids across the entire series. And it happens less than a full season before George dies. Which means this apology, this reconciliation, this "I love you" in a ditch during a storm is one of the very last real moments they get together. You don't know that the first time you watch it. But on a rewatch, it's devastating. Number 7 goes in a completely different direction. Dr. John Sturgis, Sheldon's physics professor and mentor, has spent his entire life chasing the Nobel Prize. He built his whole identity around the idea that one day his work would be recognized as genuinely important. And in the Season 2 finale, he realizes it might never happen. He has a serious mental health crisis that leads to him being hospitalized, and afterward, he breaks up with Meemaw because he's afraid another episode would make him a burden to her. Connie doesn't want the breakup. John forces it because he thinks leaving is the kind thing to do, and watching Connie try to process that across multiple episodes in season 3 is one of the quieter heartbreaks on the show. But here's why this matters beyond John and Connie's relationship. After John gets hospitalized, Mary starts panicking about Sheldon. She watches this brilliant, accomplished man lose control of his own mind and thinks, what if that's where Sheldon is headed? What if being that smart is actually a risk factor? And honestly, she's not wrong to be scared, because there's another gifted kid on this show whose intelligence didn't protect her from a single thing. Her story is a slow collapse across 5 seasons, and most people don't even rank her in their top 5 saddest moments. They should. Some of the saddest moments in young Sheldon aren't single scenes you can point to. They're things that play out so slowly across so many episodes that you don't realize how bad it's gotten until you step back and look at the full picture. Number 6. Paige Swanson shows up in season 2 as Sheldon's intellectual equal. She's smart, she's competitive, and at first, her biggest purpose on the show is giving Sheldon someone to measure himself against. But almost immediately, you start seeing cracks at home. Her parents fight in front of other families. Their marriage is falling apart. And by season 3, they're divorced. What happens to Paige after that is one of the most realistic and painful things this show ever did. Her grades drop. Her attitude changes. She starts shoplifting. She shows up at a college party looking completely disconnected from the driven, sharp kid she used to be. She appears in 9 episodes across 5 seasons, and every single appearance, she's worse than the last. Eventually, she convinces Missy to steal George's truck and run away with her, and then she's gone. The show never tells you what happens to Paige after that. You never find out if she recovered, if she went back to school, if she's okay. Her story just stops, and that unresolved ending is part of what makes it so brutal. Paige is basically what Sheldon could have become if his family, for all its problems, hadn't held together just enough. She had the same brain. She just didn't have the same safety net. Number 5. And speaking of safety nets failing, Missy Cooper spent years telling anyone who would listen that nobody in her family was paying attention to her, and nobody listened to that either. In season 2, a twin study literally confirms that she feels neglected because Sheldon absorbs so much of the family's energy. That's not Missy being dramatic. That's a clinical observation. By season 6, she's saying out loud that the family forgot about her, that nobody even told her the baby was born, and that she has to take care of herself because nobody else is going to do it.
She had the baby and no one told me? See? Angst.
Go in your room.
And look, you can debate whether stealing a truck and running away was justified. That's fair. But the feelings behind it had been building since season 2, and nobody in that family took them seriously until Missy did something dangerous enough to force them to react. The pattern is always the same with her. She asks for help, nobody hears her, she acts out, and then everyone is confused about why she's so angry. Both Paige and Missy are proof that the people around you can love you and still completely fail you. But the next 2 entries aren't about kids being failed by adults. They're about the adults themselves losing the things that held their entire worldview together. And one of them involves a loss that George and Mary barely ever talk about again. Number 4 is the one some fans actually rank above the series finale, which is wild for a season 2 episode. But when you hear why, it makes sense. A 16-year-old from Mary's church dies. And it doesn't just make Mary sad, it breaks her. She stops going to church, she starts drinking. She's angry at God in a way that feels genuinely scary, because Mary Cooper's entire identity for the whole show up to this point is built on her faith. Take that away and she doesn't know who she is. The family doesn't know how to handle it. George tries. Meemaw tries. Nobody can reach her. And eventually, the person who pulls her back is Sheldon, her 9-year-old son, who uses a scientific argument about the universe's complexity to suggest that faith and logic don't have to cancel each other out. The fact that it works is touching. The fact that a child had to be the one to do it is its own kind of devastating. Mary's supposed to be the strong one. She's supposed to be the one who holds the family together with prayer and certainty. And in this episode, she can't hold herself together, and her youngest kid has to improvise a reason for her to keep believing. Some fans rank this above George's death specifically because nobody saw it coming. The show was still mostly a comedy at that point. Nobody expected Mary Cooper to have a full crisis of faith in season 2 of a sitcom. Number 3. A few episodes later, the show does something even quieter that might be more painful because of how little attention the show gives it afterward. Mary finds out she's pregnant. George immediately starts panicking about money because they can barely afford the 3 kids they have. So he goes to work and asks for a raise. And then Mary loses the baby. George comes home, finds out, holds her, and then goes back to work the next day to withdraw the raise request because they don't need the extra income anymore. That's the whole thing. 1 episode. The show barely mentions it again. There's no follow-up arc about Mary grieving the pregnancy. There's no big speech from George about what they lost. It just happens. They absorb it, and life continues. And the silence around it is what makes it so heavy, because you know that kind of loss doesn't just go away because the show moved on to the next episode. George and Mary carried that with them for the rest of the series, whether the show acknowledged it or not. Everything you've heard so far, every bit of pain this family was already carrying, is the foundation underneath the next 2 entries. George and Mary had already lost a child. Mary had already had her faith shattered and rebuilt on an unstable foundation. Missy had already been invisible for years, and Sheldon had already seen what happens to brilliant people who end up alone. All of that context is what makes the final 2 entries land the way they do. The next one is probably the single image most fans associate with young Sheldon's sadness. But it technically has a hopeful ending, and that hope only exists because of information the character doesn't have yet. Number 2. Season 2 finale. Sheldon decides to throw a Nobel Prize listening party and invites his classmates. Nobody comes. He sits in a room surrounded by empty chairs, streamers on the walls, snacks on the table, and he cries. Mary watches from the doorway, and there is nothing she can do. If that's all this scene was, it would already be one of the saddest moments on the show. A kid who just wants friends, sitting alone at a party nobody wanted to attend. But the reason fans bring this one up constantly, the reason it competes with the literal series finale for the top spot, is context from outside the show. This episode aired on the exact same night as the Big Bang Theory finale. So the audience watching young Sheldon cry alone in that room had literally just watched adult Sheldon win the Nobel Prize, surrounded by his best friends, the people who changed his life. The show even runs a montage in this episode showing Leonard, Penny, Howard, Raj, Bernadette, and Amy as children, scattered across the country, living their own lives, completely unaware that they'll eventually find each other and become the family Sheldon chose for himself. So the loneliness is real, but it's also temporary. Sheldon just has no idea. He's sitting in that room convinced this is what his entire life is going to look like, and the audience knows he's wrong. That contrast between what he feels and what's actually coming is what gives this scene its power. And in that same episode, John Sturgis is having his own Nobel crisis across town. An old scientist terrified his life's work meant nothing, and a child terrified he'll be alone forever, running parallel in the same 30 minutes of television. The show is asking you to sit with both of those feelings at once, but neither of those compare to what the show does in its final 2 episodes, because the number 1 spot doesn't just make you sad for a character, it recontextualizes the entire series, number 1, and it's not close. George Cooper doesn't die on screen. There is no hospital scene. There is no dramatic collapse with his family gathered around him. What happens is an ordinary morning. George eats breakfast with the family. He offers Missy a ride to school and she turns him down. He walks out the door and says, "See y'all later." And that's it. That afternoon, Principal Peterson and Coach Wilkins show up at the Cooper house, and the family knows before anyone says a word. George had a heart attack at work. He was around 41 years old. And here's the detail that makes it almost unbearable. George had just been offered a job at Rice University. The family was planning to move.
I got a job offer from Rice.
Aroni?
University.
After years of financial stress, job frustration, marriage strain, and community rejection, things were finally about to get better. He died on the day the future was supposed to start. The funeral episode splits the family into completely different versions of grief. Mary prays and rages at God. circling back to the same crisis of faith she had in season 2.
Myself for not trying harder while he was here. It wasn't supposed to happen.
But this time with no easy recovery. Connie drinks. Georgie handles the casket, talks to the funeral home, takes care of logistics, and quietly begins the transition into the man that Big Bang Theory later confirms spent years supporting his mother and sister while Sheldon was off at Caltech. Missy lashes out at everyone and refuses to be comforted. And Sheldon sits in his room and replays his last interaction with his dad over and over and over. He keeps rewriting it in his head, trying to find the version where he said something meaningful, where he told George he loved him, where the goodbye actually felt like a goodbye instead of just a random Tuesday morning.
I love you.
I love you too, son.
He writes a funeral speech in his head. He never delivers it out loud. And that's the thing that makes this the #1 moment. Because Sheldon never gave that speech at the funeral, but he spent the next 7 seasons giving it to you. The entire series, every episode narrated by adult Sheldon's voice, was the thing he couldn't say standing in front of his father's casket. The memoir that frames the entire show, from the pilot to the finale, was Sheldon finally going back through his childhood and noticing what he missed. His father giving up job opportunities so Sheldon could stay in the school he needed. His mother fighting the entire town to protect him. Missy teaching him what courage looks like. Georgie keeping the family afloat when nobody was watching. The very last thing young Sheldon says in the series is that he's exactly where he's supposed to be, arriving at Caltech, beginning the life that leads to everything we watched in Big Bang
I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Theory. The memoir is done. And the saddest part is that it took losing his father for Sheldon to finally pay attention to the people who were always there.